Is Leica's first digital camera still a player in this day and age? Let's talk about it. So it was a nice Sunday a week or so ago, and I decided maybe I'd head out and take some sunset pictures at the beach. And I looked around at my Leica cameras to decide what I was going to take with me, and I grabbed the Leica M8. I haven't used this in a while. I charged up the battery and made sure the memory card was good, and I was good to go. And hey, after I got at the beach and started shooting pictures, I remembered what a great camera this really is. The Leica M8 was released in 2006 as Leica's first entry level into the digital camera space. Of course, the world's very first digital camera was the Epson RD1 that was introduced 2 years earlier in 2004. I don't know if you've seen that one yet, but it's kind of a cool camera. It's got a little, almost like a little fuel gauge on the top that tells you how many pictures you've taken and things like that. But the M8 came in black or this silver chrome version that I have. And there are several cool things about this camera, but one of the most interesting things is its 10.3 megapixel CCD sensor, which was manufactured by Kodak. It's actually an APS-H sensor. Yes, that's a size, you just really never hear of it. It's just under full frame with a 1.33 crop factor versus the 1.5 that we see with the better known APS-C size sensor. If you did the math, you know that it's about 2/3 the size of a full frame sensor. And the neat thing is the sensor, which was designed by Kodak to emulate Kodak film stock, really it gives you a nice kind of retro-ish feel in the photos. Of course, this is all in a Leica rangefinder body style, and it takes the M-mount lenses with manual focus. Unfortunately, or I guess fortunately, maybe if you're a monochrome shooter, there was no IR filter over the sensor, infrared sensor. And so after the camera came out and was out for a while, the people were seeing that there was, especially in dark blacks, there was kind of a purple or brownish tint to the dark blacks. And that was a result of not having an IR filter. That infrared light was changing the way the sensor was registering color. And it got to a point where Leica actually went to everyone who bought a Leica M8 and sent them an IR filter. I've got one right here. That's the silver thing on the end of this one. They sent them an IR filter to help take care of that. And so even, I mean, as recently as maybe 5-6 years ago, I know that some people were actually still getting them as second owners of M8s, but I think technically they've quit shipping those a while ago. So for color, this IR filter fixes that problem. Some people don't like it. Some people say that, you know, they get a lot of glare and off this filter, but for me, it seems to work great. The great thing though is if you're a monochrome shooter, you basically have a monochrome sensor with no filters over it. So that gives you great monochrome clarity. And they used to even call this camera the poor man's Leica monochrome camera. So the M8 is a nice looking camera with that classic rangefinder shape. It's a little portlier than an M6 or an M11, and you'll notice the additional width when you hold it, and a little bit heavier because it's a little bit older. It has the familiar Leica build and that solid feel with most of the features that we are now, you know, really familiar with on today's Leica digital rangefinders. The front of the camera is pretty traditional with the rangefinder line preview lever and the lens release button here. The viewfinder and rangefinder windows are all pretty standard. And the rangefinder lines in this camera are paired for 24, 35, 50, 75, and 28, 90. So you have a good range there. The camera even comes with the little red Leica dot, even way back then, and nice lettering that says M8 here. When we look at the top of the camera, you'll see how this is a bit, a thicker body than most of the M's. I think they ran this body width probably through the MPs and then started going to that slimmer feel. On the top, you see the power switch has 3 selections. They ran this for a few different versions of kind of M8, M9, MP. So it's off, single shooting, continuous shooting, and a self-timer mode. The continuous shooting is a little funny as for this camera, continuous shooting means that the camera can do a whopping 2 frames per second. The shutter goes from bulb mode all the way to 8,000, 1/8,000th of a second, which is pretty impressive for a camera this age. One of my favorite things about this camera is the big kind of clunky shutter in it. It's got like an old school shutter. It makes a great sound. You could actually feel it in the body of the camera when you take the picture. Let's see if we can hear it here. That's the buffer. So that's the sound of the shutter, and it's really cool. That's on single. Let's see if we can even do continuous shooting here just to get an idea. Still buffering. So that's continuous shooting in 2006. Of course, you know, on the top of the camera, other things. We've got a hot shoe here. I've got a thumb grip on it right now. And we've got a little counter window right here. I'll see if I can put a little inset shot of that. But this counter window shows you how much battery you have left, and it is supposed to count down exposure so you know how much you have left on the card. One of the funny things is I've got an 8 gig card in here, is all. And that's still too big for the counter to start counting down. I think maybe a 4 gig or something like that, probably less than that is what they had in 2006. But I think with the 4 gig, you might be able to see that counter counting down. But you know, you can put big cards in here, but you're never going to see that counter really starting to count down because there's just so much memory, you know, something that they never even contemplated back in 2006. So on the back of the camera, we've got a 2.5-inch screen here. It's just for the menu and for playback if you have that turned on after you shoot, and of course for reviewing photos. There is no live view, so while you're using the camera, it's just dark. You know, another thing that kind of contributes to that old school feel of the camera. So no chimping here, right? You're taking pictures and no need to look down at the screen. You can have the photo review set on, but honestly, the resolution of the screen isn't going to tell you much other than, you know, did you get the framing you wanted and things like that. So there's 5 buttons that run the menu. Play, delete, protect, to protect a photo, info, and set are the ones you use most of the time. And then on the other side of the screen is a button titled menu. And then of course the regular D-pad over here. The D-pad is just 4 directions. It doesn't have a button in the middle, but you can also spin the wheel on the outside to make selections in the menu. This camera is not a dynamic range beast. It has substantial noise really in anything over 640 ISO. The ISO settings go up to 1250 and then up to 2500. I tend to stay at 640 or below. It definitely struggles in low light. But with the help of Lightroom's denoise function, which I use on almost all the photos out of this camera, you can get some real beauties out of this 10.3 megapixel sensor. The bottom of the camera features the classic Leica release plate with the turnkey, and under that, of course, are the SD card and the battery. So the bottom of the camera is really like all the, you know, film rangefinders, only when you take it off, there's just the battery and the SD card. And the only connector is on the left side of the camera. There's a little door, and it has a mini USB socket. And that's really it. It's just simple Leica goodness in a Leica package. And, you know, for the first Leica digital, it's a pretty good camera. You know, the 10 megapixel thing is, I mean, that's low. You know, we look today and we say, oh, 24 is kind of, you know, you can do whatever you want with 18, maybe 24 megapixels. And then above that, you know, you have a lot of room to crop and a lot of resolution, but, you know, really 24 is kind of like the, you know, average, I would say. Even though now things are 40, 60, 100, you know, it's getting a little out of control. 10 megapixels isn't much, but depending on what you're going to do with it, I mean, 90% of photos are shared on social media now anyway, so 10 megapixels is actually fine. And I'll show you some pictures here in a minute. I shot with this little lens. I like this little lens on here. This is the Voigtlander color scope R lens. It's a 28 millimeter 2.8. It makes for a nice small package, and then as I said before, I run just a generic thumb grip on this thing off of Amazon, and it just really helps to be able to hold the camera. Otherwise, it's it's kind of wider than a normal rangefinder of today. Like, it's much wider than my M11, and I mean thicker here. And this just really helps to be able to hang on to the camera, because there's no thumb bump or anything on these. It's just like a smooth torpedo shape, and this thumb grip helps quite a bit to be able to hang on to it. So let's take a look at some pictures that I took that day I went to the beach, and you can see this camera shine. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this very quick look at the Leica M8. It's just a fun camera. I say that about every camera, but this one I think is still very usable in this day and age. You can't be in a hurry. Everything is slow. When I was firing off shots earlier, that was as fast as the camera would let me go. So it takes a while to buffer between shots. You're not really getting any kind of continuous shooting out of this thing. There's just a substantial delay between shots. Where it shines is that Kodak CCD sensor. It's just a really great sensor in this camera. It's not a great sensor by today's standards, but it gives a really nice filmic look, and kind of that Kodak look. I read an article once that it said it was like shooting an unending roll of Kodachrome when you're shooting the M8. But it's really nice for monochrome shooters because you get a filmic look with a lot of nice grain in your monochrome shot. So this, if you're a monochrome shooter, this might be a fun one to add to the collection, just because it's got that unfiltered sensor. There's no AA filter laying on top of the native CCD sensor, so you get even a purer look, even granted that it's at 10 megapixels, right? So it's basically doing everything the new Leica Q3 monochrome is doing, except it's missing about 40 megapixels. If you're looking for one of these, the M8, the M8 II, the M9, all the same kind of series, the one thing you need to be aware of is sensor corrosion. So it kind of started in the M8's M8.2. It got really bad in the M9. And it's really actually kind of hard to find an M9 that doesn't have a corroded sensor. And, Leica was replacing them. I'm not sure if they still do for this thing, but, once that sensor goes, the camera is pretty much worthless. So if you're buying one of these, buyer beware, make sure that you're really checking with the seller and you're seeing some pictures out of the camera, so you can see that there's no corrosion on the sensor. And usually if it's really bad, you can just take the lens off and actually see corrosion right on the sensor. So just kind of buyer beware on that stuff. It's something to look out for if you're looking for M8s and M9s. And you'll find these on eBay or at some of the used camera sellers for probably like $1,600 to $2,000 US dollars. So if you're looking for one of these, it's a fun old camera to add to the collection. And it just kind of feels a little historic when you're out there shooting with Leica's first digital rangefinder camera. So thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. I have a lot of good stuff posted and more stuff coming. I try to post a couple videos a week, so I think I hit somewhere around that average. And I'd love you to be a part of it. A simple click of the subscribe button, it really helps the channel. Plus it lets me know that you like what I'm doing and that I'm headed in the right direction with the channel. If you're already a subscriber, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for connecting in both subscribing and conversations in the comments section. I really appreciate all of that. The M8, it's getting a little long in the tooth, but it still produces great pictures, even at 10 megapixels, 10.3 megapixels. It's an important part of my collection, and I love to just grab it every once in a while and go out and remember, this is how the first digital camera shot. And often I'll grab an M3 or an M6 and go out and shoot film and kind of, keep my finger in the heritage of Leica, on kind of the pulse of the Leica brand and the whole family tree. So it's kind of fun when you get to a point you can start filling in some of these cameras into your collection. And this one is one that, if you can find a good one, worthy of a purchase, I think, if you're a collector out there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.